Welcome to the Chord Savvy Studio here in Atlanta, Georgia, where we're going to have singer-songwriter Ben Bostick come in and perform one of his original songs. Afterwards, I'll sit down and ask him about his musical journey and also dig into the craft of songwriting.
Well, I finally had enough of your nasty ways. I ain't staying for another day. It's been the same old tune for way too long. It's time to sing another song. Now, baby, where I'm bound, I can't say just away from you and away from this place. I'm bound for freedom elsewhere in USA. Well, I'm taking my car and I'm taking the dog. You can keep the rest of my junk. I'm leaving tonight and I'm traveling light. Your baggage won't fit in my trunk. I'm bound for no address, no location, just somewhere else in this U.S. nation. My destination is elsewhere in USA. Now if you miss me too much and you need my touch again, just suck it up, 'cause I'll be far away elsewhere in USA. Know what I love about the open road? It ain't the wind blowing back my hair. It's not the speed or the radio. It's the fact that you ain't there. I ain't felt this good since before I met you. Now mile after mile I feel better and better. Yeah, I'm bound for freedom elsewhere in USA. Oh, my destination is elsewhere USA.
How's it going?
It's going all right.
Good, good.
Yeah. And you?
I feel great.
Good.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to be with you, Ben.
Likewise, man.
Yeah.
It's great.
So I loved Elsewhere USA. I mean, I wanted to know the story of, the woman or the town or what's the issue there. So tell us more.
I wish there were a better story. It's one of these songs where I had the title written down in my notebook, and I had like a vibe in mind for the kind of song. I wanted it to be sort of like a triumphant yet rascally sort of like a guy's getting out and it's a happy song, but he's being sort of mean to the woman as on the way out, and Elsewhere USA is one of those tunes that I had a title in my notebook for a long time, and I had a certain vibe I was going for, and this is actually the second version of the song that I wrote. I wrote another one that was like a lyrically a Hellhounds on My Trail, like the Robert Johnson tune style lyrics, where he was always having to go elsewhere. He's always trying to get out of where he was. And then I just ended up throwing it out and completely starting from scratch, and I wrote this new version in a matter of minutes, and it just fit, I think.
So it just totally flowed. I mean, was there a woman in mind or a number of relationships you'd been in, or it was just this concept piece?
Just this concept piece. I knew it was going to be a road piece. It had to be a road piece about a guy getting out of somewhere, and this guy has no destination in mind. He just wants to be elsewhere. That's it, just away from this woman.
Do you have any other favorite lyrics in the song that stand out for you?
I think my favorite part is the final verse where it says, you know what I love about the open road? It's not the wind blowing through my hair. It's not the speed or the radio. It's the fact that you ain't there.
I love that.
Because it's like in music, because it exists in time, you can use suspense. It's like different than obviously from painting or something where you can use, okay, what does he love about it? What does he love about the open road? So you get people waiting for a second, and there's a punchline.
Yeah. Well, and to me, it's such an easy song to understand because I feel like we've all been there. I mean, they're the relationships that we leave permanently, but even with the people we love, like sometimes we just got to get to somewhere else. And that's what Elsewhere USA represents.
That's what it represents, yeah.
Is there actually an Elsewhere USA? Did you find that in your studies?
I didn't even look it up. I don't know. I mean, maybe. It's like everything USA, but in this song, it just means just somewhere else.
Okay, very cool. Any other lyrical concepts that were interesting as you pulled this together?
No, I mean there's a couple like puns in there. Like there's a line that says your baggage won't fit in my trunk, and it's the kind of tone where you can. This song I think is the kind of tone where you can slip in some jokes as long as they're not too silly. You know what I mean? And it helps lift the mood to a more triumphant feel than if it were completely just about how much he hated his ex-girlfriend, you know?
Right.
So you can slip that in there and it makes it fun to listen to.
Very cool. Well, let's transition to the musical side. I mean, there's a lot of chords and your left hand is doing some pretty funky stuff. Talk about how you think about composition and the chords you choose.
When I started writing this song, I was listening to Elton John for the first time in my life, seriously. Like I casually listened to Elton John. I had the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road album growing up, which I loved and everything. Yeah. But when I started listening to his music and playing along with it, I was like, oh, he's doing really interesting stuff all over the place. He's using lots of chord inversions. He's using lots of substitutions. He's using like a dominant 6, a minor 6, and a flat 6 major all within like 3 bars, and it sounds great, you know? Yeah. So I was inspired by his writing, as well as a lot of other listening that I was doing, to start trying to play my guitar less like a guitar player and more like a piano. And so in this song, the opening, or not the opening, but the verse chords are it just goes from the 1 to 4, 5 to 1, but I'm just throwing in inversions in there. So I'm doing the 1 chord, then the 1 first inversion, and then to the 4, and then the 5 first inversion, back to the 1. And it just adds a little bit of motion that otherwise would feel static. And a lot of that is what I'm doing throughout the song. In the chorus section, or the hook section, it's just walking from the 4 and then to a sharp 4 diminished 7 to the 1 with the 5 in the root, and then the 5. So it's just doing like a lot of simple chords, but using inversions to make it sound more interesting, to give it the piano feel. Because you listen to a piano player play, it's like, it's amazing. Oh yeah, no, that's right. And for guitar players, it's just different when you translate over. And so what I'm hearing you say is like you're just intentionally kind of playing with the theory of things just to see what came out for this song. That I was really playing with voice leading. Is the short answer. Yep. Just what's my bass doing? Is the main thing. And if you can make the bass line melodic in some sort of way, or have a line to it, to me it adds a lot to a song if it's going to be performed solo, which is mainly what I do for a living. And also I threw a flat 6 in there. That's the flat 6. To the 1. Elton.
That's right, for you, Elton. Now, I also, you either drop 2 beats or you add 2 beats here and there, or it's got that feel. So talk about when you choose to break from the normal 4/4 time.
I unconsciously do that all the time, and I'm not sure why I do that, but it just is. I'm always dropping and adding 2 beats here and there, and it's mainly, I mean, I play a lot of country music, and I've been playing country bands, and they just follow the words. That's it. So there's very little, you know, a lot of country is notated in 2, because that's really what it is, and they're just following the words, you know, and the words dictate the metrical structure.
On this song, specifically, did you start with the lyrics and then the music happened, or did you kind of cobble it together from different ideas? How did the lyrics collide with the music?
This one started with the lyrics. It was that I had written the other songs I had mentioned that just didn't work for me. It was a cool song, I mean, it sounded cool and stuff, but it wasn't something I would play. Yeah. You know, I always want something that I love. When I write a song, I want something, okay, I love this song, I love to play it, I can imagine myself playing it 200 times, you know. And I just threw out the old lyrics, and I was like, here's the concept, and I started writing. And then oftentimes when I sort of hit on something that works lyrically, then I'll get the guitar, and that'll help me flesh out the ideas lyrically, so I know sort of what I'm writing to. Interesting. This one is words first.
And how about song structure? Do you write to kind of popular song structures in general, or do you vary from that, and kind of what are your rules around that?
I vary. I like to experiment a lot. I like to write sort of in palindrome structure a lot, where I'll have like an A B C B A structure. But this one is very much pop structure. This one is verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, solo. You know, it's like a, you know, Beatles tune plus a solo. Yeah. So.
And speaking of solos, I mean, let's get to it. I mean, the best part of the song, the harmonica playing.
Thanks, man. Besides the flubs. Yeah.
It was chunky, but it's cool. I mean,
it's a new song.
It's a raw song.
It'll be cool eventually.
Yeah. But talk about playing the harmonica. What's that like?
Harmonica is a deceptively difficult instrument. It's one that's very easy to play like decently on. It's one of those, because if you blow, it is the 1 chord. If you draw, it is the 5 chord. And in Western music, basically everything is a 1 or 5. You can interpret it that way, or basically, and you know what I mean. But not on a diatonic harmonica, the kind I'm playing, like a regular harmonica, folk harmonica, blues harmonica. Only some pitches are on there, and it's not all of the notes of the major scale. Even it's different per octave. And to get the other notes, you have to bend the notes to like a very specific place if you want to sustain them. The sound of the note changes. Nailing pitches is really hard. If you're very skillful, you can minimize that. And there are some notes that you can't get by bending, which you have to get using a technique called an overblow, sort of like if you're playing a trumpet or something like that. And those are very difficult, and I can only get them in practice. I would never attempt one in real life. But there's certain, you know, people like Howard Levy, who plays with Bella Fleck and the Flecktones, is a master of this, and he plays the diatonic harmonica as if it's a chromatic harmonica. And the amount of skill that it takes to do that is unbelievable. Like the fact that, like, as a person who plays a harmonica a little bit, you listen to these guys who are wizards like that, and you just know that there's, 30,000 hours of practice to be able to do the kind of stuff that looks so simple and effortless to them.
Yeah, and so how often do you play with a harmonica, or how often do you compose with a harmonica?
I've never composed with a harmonica, but I play with it live all the time. And I mainly take blues style on folk style solos. Like I'm like an intermediate level harmonica player, I would say, which is a lot more than a basic style. Like it took me a long time to get to the intermediate level.
Yeah, I'm pre-basic.
Yeah.
Cool. Are there any other musical elements of the song that you find interesting that you'd like to share, especially when thinking about it as a songwriter?
My favorite part of the song is the build up to the solo when it goes to the flat 6 chord and it does a little palm muted thing and it gets bigger and then it launches into the solo back to the 1 chord. And I'm learning to love the flat 6 more and more. And I think it's great because the third of the flat 6 is the root of the 1 chord in your scale. So you can go from a melody that sounds like it's going to resolve back to the 1 and do a deceptive cadence into the flat 6. And because it's a major chord, it doesn't have the same predictable deceptive cadence as the natural 6, and it doesn't have this sort of predictable deceptive cadence of the 4 chord either. Flat 6 is a great sort of surprise and suspense chord as long as you don't go to the flat 7 then to the 1. That's a really painful Broadway sounding thing. But if you just hit that flat 6 and then you go right back to the 1, it sounds awesome.
Cool.
I love it.
So you really, I love how nerdy you're getting.
Advice to songwriters: study your theory.
So you really enjoy the music theory aspect. What is it about theory that you enjoy, especially when you bring it into songwriting?
The thing that is fascinating about theory to me is that I will hear something and I will love the effect, and then I just go, how did he do that? Like what just happened to me? And I have always wanted to know. And I love if you go and like listen to like Bach chorales, you listen to one 30-second Bach chorale that's been, he's taken an existing melody and then harmonized it. There's more in that 30-second chorale than in top 40 radio for the last 50 years. You know what I mean? And it's amazing, but you listen to it and it sounds beautiful. And you're like, what is he doing there? And you can analyze it and you can sort of figure out how he's achieving these effects. And that is so cool to me. I just love the fact that music can produce all these different moods. And the fun thing for me to do is to try to bring some of these theoretical notions into pop songwriting and try to sort of hide it in there so it doesn't sound like, oh, this guy's proggy, or because when you hear some guy who's like really nerdy into theory shoving everything he can into a song, it's sort of annoying to listen to. If you can do it like Elton John does, which we were talking about earlier, it's amazing, and nobody's song sounds like it. Nobody's song sounds like Yellow Brick Road or Tiny Dancer, where he modulates to the parallel minor for the pre-chorus. So it's amazing. So
what I'm hearing you say is you're kind of trying to change the margin of where popular music is going, like how songs are written. Is that an overstatement, or is that what you're working on?
That sounds a little too grandiose for what I'm trying to do. But I am trying to write what to me is more interesting music than a lot of what I don't listen to top 40, so I can't say that it's more interesting than that. But I'm trying to write stuff that entertains me or that I would like to hear. That's what I'm always trying to write, is stuff that excites me.
Cool. And what else do you enjoy most about music?
Oh, everything. I love music. I love playing music. I love listening to music. I love musicians. I don't like the music business too much, but it's a joy. I don't know what I would do without it.
Yeah. No, it's definitely in my soul. I can't imagine my life without it too, which is why I do this whole Chord Savvy thing, and I bring a travel guitar around the planet, and I like writing and recording and talking to musicians. You alluded to something there. That's why you kind of stay away from the music business. you've been a pretty successful musician. I mean, you're professional, but you're not in the music business. Help us understand that distinction in your mind.
I had some brushes with the music business. I lived in LA for 9 years, and I was in a band there that started doing pretty well, and then it sort of fell apart due to the music business. Is the short story. I can't really get into the names and all that sort of stuff, but it's just sort of an ugly business, in my opinion, that has very little to do with music. And as you could tell by my ramblings before, I love the music part. Like that's, like I don't want to spend 7 of my 8 work hours on social media. I just don't have the interest to do that. Like I like to play the music and write music, listen to music, and a lot of the people in the music business don't even like music. They like being in the music business. So, and that's a gross generalization, but my experience has not been that pretty with it. And my wife works as a wardrobe stylist, and she's worked with a lot of the major label clients and stuff, and it's just, it doesn't have anything to do with music.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to be part of anything that takes away from that. And as an independent artist, it's very easy for me to decide what I want to be spending my time on. And I could probably have like a much bigger online following if I dedicated myself to that.
Sure.
But whatever.
But you got a different path. I respect that. Tell us more about when you decided to really make the switch, like when you knew inside yourself that you could make it as a solo artist.
It was a very clear moment in my life. So I was playing in this band in LA, and we were playing songs that the singer wrote or the band had sort of jammed out, and I wasn't really getting my writing rocks off. So I wanted to do something solo, and so I started going to open mics, trying to get my chops up as a performer, because I hadn't been really performing as a solo artist. I mean, I hadn't really ever performed as a solo artist. And open mics were sort of dragging me down, because, you know, open mics are great, but a lot of times you're sitting there for 3 hours waiting to get your one song in. You paid $5 and there's a 2-drink minimum, you know, and then, you know, 3/4 of the people there, like, can't play at all. And by the time it's your turn, you're tired. Like, it's just miserable. And you get up there and you play. There's only one guy left, and he's like, "You done?" You know? So I was like, I gotta find a different way than doing the open mics to try to get some reps. I just want to like play in front of people, get comfortable. So I decided to try playing on the street, to busk.
Yeah.
So I went down to the Santa Monica Pier, which I knew was a busking spot in LA. Went out there, set up a little portable amp, played for a few hours, and I made money. And I was like, this is how I'm going to get my chops up. And I played out there for like 2 years. I mean, I was there 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days sometimes, depending on how much bills I had to pay.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. It was the best experience ever. And it certainly shaped me as a performer big time.
How did it shape you? What stands out?
The biggest thing about it was being able to write and see people's reactions to songs I wrote.
Yeah.
Because when you write in your bedroom, you write a certain kind of song. When you write for people, you write a different kind of song. And I'm not talking about pandering. That's a different thing. Or, you know, it's like when you write to entertain is a different, you have different things that you take into account.
Yeah.
Rather than when you write for yourself or write to record. My records are very different than my live shows, because I formed my live show, or the vibe of my live show, on the pier, playing for people and getting people's attention. So that's probably the biggest thing that it shaped. And it also shaped my cover repertoire a lot, because I was playing, you know, covers to get people's attention, and I tried not to play just strict covers. You want to add
You tricked him. You threw in some originals every now and again,
all
right?
the time. I would usually alternate. That was my thing. So I'd play like a Johnny Cash tune, then I'd play one of my tunes. And they say, who did that one? I'm like, I did. I have a CD for sale. Yeah.
So you kind of found yourself musically and as a performer out in Los Angeles, and then you moved the family back here to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
What's it been like being a musician in Atlanta now and performing around town?
It's been great. It's been one of the most welcoming receptions that I can imagine. People here are very friendly. There's not because the music business side is not here, you don't feel the sort of what can you do for me feeling here. People like each other's music. They listen to each other's music and stuff. And I found nothing but a great community here. And I love it. And I love a lot of the music that I hear here too.
So you and I got to know each other through NSAI, the Nashville Songwriters Association International. How long have you been involved with that? And what advice would you give to songwriters out there that may want to share their stuff and they're concerned about stepping into that kind of vulnerable space?
I got involved in that after I moved here. I think it must have been November or December of last year. And I got involved in that to meet other songwriters and to also, I'd never been a part of like a songwriting critique group. So I said, this will be interesting. We'll see what happens. And it's been great. I've met a lot of cool songwriters in there, heard a lot of great music. And to anybody who's afraid of having their songs critiqued, don't be. Maybe it'll hurt for a second, but my piece of it, actually, I do have a good piece of advice for people who are bringing a song in for critique. Don't bring something that is absolutely done, because that's not why you would go in there. Bring in something that you think is good, but maybe it doesn't quite sit right, or you can't quite tell if it's done. You know what I mean? And then people may give you helpful ideas. They may point out things that you missed. Like just little things sometimes would be really helpful. You bring in a song in there, people are like, it's fantastic, I love this song. And then one person will be like, this doesn't make sense. And you'd be like, oh, you're right. How did that slip by? Yeah. And it's great. It's great for just little slip-ups like that. And it's also great to meet other songwriters. Yeah. And you hear a lot of different styles of songwriting in there, which is inspiring too. Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed the diversity in the group. And it's made me a better songwriter. And it's cool to plug into the ecosystem, right? It's also kind of like a therapy group. And I will... As a guy who spent most of my time hanging out with musicians, with players, I love hanging out with players. I've never hung out with songwriters that much. And it's a very different group. Very different. What's different about it? It's nerdier. Yeah. Way nerdier. Songwriters don't even try to be cool. That's right. We're just doing our thing, right? Which is cool. Yeah. Which is cool. Well, great. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to share your music and also to answer some questions here. How can people stay in touch with you and talk about your new album that's out? My new album came out on April 17th, right in the middle of the COVID pandemic. It's called Among the Faceless Crowd, and it's a collection of songs about working people who are having a tough time getting by. And you can get it anywhere. It's on Spotify, iTunes, all the streaming platforms, all the download places. You can get it from my website, benbostick.com. And you can follow me on facebook.com/benbostick, Instagram at Mr. Ben Bostick, Mr. Ben Bostick. Like the Shaggy song, she called me Mr. Ben Bostick. Baby fantastic. I didn't want to interrupt, man. I didn't want to interrupt. Somehow, at Ben Bostick was already taken. Yeah. But the count doesn't exist, so I don't know what happened. Interesting. Well, baby, it's fantastic. Yeah. And I'm on Twitter. I don't use it, but I'm on there at Ben Bostick. All right. Well, thank you very much, Ben. You rock. And we're going to do one more thing in the camera. We're going to do a 1, 2, 3, rock on. Can you do that? I can do that. All right. One. In that camera? Yeah, in the main one. 1, 2, 3, rock on! It's awful. This is like, I don't know why I can't play it in this position. Yeah. Okay. So do this. Oh, gotcha.
much of a dicker.
That's great. You sounded great. Okay, cool. All right, we're gonna do